Welcome to our talk on our research manuscript, Individual Differences and Technology Affordances Combined to Predict Mobile Social Media Distraction Behaviors and Consequences. My name is Dr. Emily Sidnam-Mauch. I am currently a research scientist at the School of Computing at Clemson University, although this research was conducted while I was at the University of Southern California. My co-author is Dr. Peter Monge, who is currently an emeritus professor at the Annenberg School for Communication at the University of Southern California. It's well documented that smartphone users experience numerous negative consequences from off-task mobile social media use and struggle to manage these distractions. Past work has found that people will use their mobile social media while trying to fall asleep, while eating, talking face-to-face, working, doing household chores, during leisure time, while walking, and while driving. And what becomes problematic is that this off-task use of social media can lead to consequences such as poor sleep, mindless eating, relational strife, errors on tasks, increased time on tasks, stress, injuries, and even in the case of distracted driving or risky smartphone use, it can even lead to fatalities. Our research aims to predict why people engage social media distractions and how these distraction behaviors can lead to negative outcomes. Looking at distraction research, distractions are defined as off-task stimuli, so anything that's irrelevant to a primary task that you're trying to complete. When you become aware of a distraction, it can either come internally as a task-unrelated thought and be prompted by the individual, or it can come externally from the environment. Either way, once you become aware of a distraction, you have the choice to either manage that distraction or to engage that distraction while also trying to complete your primary task. We want to understand why people choose to engage social media distractions instead of managing the distraction and going back solely to the primary task. We apply two theories to explain social media distraction behavior. The first is uses and gratifications theory, which explains that people actively select media and communication technologies to meet individual needs based on their perceptions of how a media is appropriate to meet those needs. Uses and gratifications theory, particularly an extension of this theory by LaRose, can also account for automatic behaviors that drive media technology use, like checking habits. Based on research on social media usage and uses and gratifications theory, we identify needs like fear of missing out and social network site intensity, as well as automatic behaviors like checking habits, to be relevant for internally prompted distraction engagement. We then apply the load theory of attention, which explains that the perceptual load of a task and the salience of a distraction can work together to inform whether or not you become aware of distractions during a particular task. Looking at distractor salience research and load theory research, we identify notification settings and the number of social media apps with notifications enabled as factors influencing how people become aware of external distractions. The more opportunities for perceptually salient external distractions can predict externally prompted distraction engagement. Also applying load theory, we can explain how distraction engagement can lead to consequences. Load theory explains that every human has a limited capacity to be aware of and attend to information around them, but we use this perceptual capacity to its fullest at every moment. If we think about the choice to attend to a distraction, if that distraction has a high perceptual load, then we are reallocating our attention and our perceptual resources to that distraction and away from a primary task, to the detriment of that primary task. Past research shows that social media provide visual and manual information that can command so much of our perceptual resources that it actually depletes our ability to attend adequately to a primary task. So, applying load theory, we can explain that social media distractions demand high perceptual loads that divert attentional resources away from primary tasks. And the more frequently you engage these distractions across tasks, the more likely you are to also experience a higher frequency of distraction-related consequences. So, applying uses and gratifications theory and load theory, along with research on mobile social media distractions, we developed the Social Media App Distraction Engagement and Consequences model, or the SMADEC model for short. And this model explains which human factors and technology factors are relevant for predicting social media app distraction engagement, and how that distraction engagement could then lead to distraction-related consequences to primary tasks. Additionally, we have a path leading from fear of missing out to social media distraction consequences, as a direct connection between these two factors has been identified in past literature. Now, in order to test this model, what we did was first we had to develop actually novel measures for social media app distraction engagement and social media app distraction consequences. This is because although there were measures that existed that were relevant to these two different topics, many of the measures had conflations of both distraction behavior and distraction consequences within the same scale. So we modified and drew upon existing scales related to problematic mobile phone use and related to problematic mobile social media use to develop these novel measures and to make sure that we clearly delineated between distraction behavior and distraction consequences, since these are two separate variables in our model. We then created a survey to obtain data from mobile social media users in the US, and we did this through 2 waves of an online survey. We started by testing the validity of the 2 novel measures with confirmatory factor analysis on both samples, along with confirming the reliability and validity of existing measures. And we tested the overall SMODIC model and research hypotheses through structural equation modeling with robust maximum likelihood estimation. Okay, let's get into the extra fun bit, the results. At the end of our data collection, we ended up with just over 1,000 participants. Again, this was in 2 waves, so we had 616 participants in wave 1 and 410 in wave 2. Data collection happened about a week apart. Table 2 shows that our participants in sample 1 and sample 2 reflect general distributions that are similar to the US population. So we have a fairly representative set of participants. We started by looking at the reliability and validity of all the measures used in the structural equation model, and all scales showed a strong reliability, and the CFAs had good fit as well. And in particular, the SMA-DE scale and the SMA-DC scale, which were the novel measures that we created on distraction engagement and consequences, were both very reliable across sample 1 and sample 2, with convex alphas higher than 0.9, and they both showed good fit in the confirmatory factor analyses that we did on both sample 1 and sample 2 as well, which gives us a good indication that these are reliable and show capture valid patterns. So you can also learn more about this in the supplemental materials section. Now we get into the main structural equation analysis results. So the initial model showed very poor fit. And what was happening was that social network site intensity and phone notification settings were not significant predictors of social media distraction engagement. So this showed that our hypothesis 2 and 4A were not supported. And they were causing the model to not be a good fit to the data. So what we did was we re-specified the model to exclude the 2 non-significant paths. And when we re-specified the model, you can learn more about what went into that decision-making of the supplemental materials as well, and the justification for those re-specifications. But when we did re-specify it, it showed a good fit to the sample 1 data, which was shown by the non-significant chi-square of the model and the robust fit indices. And with this, though, this could be that it fit well to this data, but maybe it's just due to the idiosyncrasies of that sample. So in order to get more support that this is a valid model, we need to confirm it on a separate sample. So we also ran the SEM on sample 2, and the respecified model showed good fit to the sample 2 data as well. And because we got a well-fitting model on samples 1 and samples 2, this supports that this model reflects larger patterns in the population, and that we can say that this structure of this model is well supported with the data. When we look at the individual path results across samples 1 and samples 2, we can see that all of the beta values are similar and are in the same direction. So again, this is showing that the results between 2 independent samples held together well and were comparable across these 2 different groups. What does this mean for the research hypotheses that work together to form the model? Well, we know that hypothesis 2 and 4A were not supported in the model. But when we look closer at the global model fit and also the individual paths, we find that H1A and B, H3, H4B, and H5 were supported. Let's look at what this means. So, supporting H1A and H1B, people with higher fear of missing out engage mobile social media distractions more frequently and report experiencing more frequent consequences from mobile social media distractions. So FOMO had a large effect on both social media app distraction engagement and social media app distraction consequences. Supporting the third hypothesis, we found that people with stronger social media checking habits or automatic checking behaviors engage social media distractions more frequently on their phone. This explained a medium effect on distraction engagement. Supporting H4, we found that the more social media apps on a person's phone that have notifications enabled predict more frequent distraction engagement, explaining between a small and medium effect on distraction engagement. Lastly, the frequency of engaging social media distractions across tasks positively predicts how frequently people experience negative consequences across primary tasks. And social media distraction engagement explained 41% of the variance in distraction consequences, which is a large effect. Putting it all together, our structural equation modeling results support an updated SMADEC model, which shows that a person's age, fear of missing out, checking habit strength, and number of social media apps with notifications enabled predict how frequently people engage social media distractions on their phone, and in turn, how often they experience negative outcomes across tasks. This indicates that communication technology distraction behavior is influenced by a complex intertwining of goal-driven information-seeking behaviors, automatic processes in the brain, and technology affordances. There's been a growing interest in HCI research to design tools and interventions to decrease compulsive, excessive, or distracting social media or smartphone use. Our findings have several implications for the design of digital well-being tools like this. Based on our results, interventional tools should simultaneously consider internal and external drivers of distraction behaviors, and they should pay particular attention to how to mitigate internally prompted distraction engagement, since these factors explained a larger amount of variance in distraction behavior. In particular, interventional tools should consider how to alleviate fear of missing out when mitigating distractions, as this was the biggest predictor of both distraction engagement and consequences. Additionally, interventional tools should both break problematic checking habits and also promote the formation of habits that can support goal-directed social media use. On behalf of myself and Dr. Monge, I'd like to say thank you for listening to our research presentation. As in many cases, the book is better than the movie, so we hope you'll go ahead and also read our full research manuscript to learn more.